Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to talk about the new movie, Inside Out 2. If you end up enjoying this video, please consider liking and subscribing. That way I don't have repressed emotions for the rest of my life. The synopsis is as follows. Joy, sadness, anger, fear, and disgust have been running a successful operation by all accounts. However, when anxiety shows up, they aren't too sure how to feel. So without further ado, let's get into the 6 things that make a movie great. 1. The plot. This movie opens with the emotions that we're used to in Riley's brain. She's playing hockey with her friend, she's having a great time, things are going swimmingly, she's making awesome core memories, when all of a sudden later that night, inside of her mind gets blown up to make way for new emotions and puberty. The most dominant emotion that shows up is anxiety. Some of the other ones include envy, boredom, and embarrassment. There's some friction between the standard emotions and these new emotions to the point where these new emotions eventually kick all the standard emotions out of her mind and they become repressed emotions. Riley starts making uncharacteristic decisions that impact her friendships, and the journey we go on is watching these standard emotions escape and try to come back and save who Riley is as a person from these new emotions. Like the first one, I love the story that this movie told. It's tough because there definitely is a point in the middle of the film where you're like, yeah, this one's definitely not as good as the first one. Just some of that magic was gone. But it makes it more of a bummer because they definitely found it again near the end, and it's like, why couldn't you have done this for the whole movie? This movie was okay overall, and I really like the story that it told. I just think that they could have made the plot flow a bit nicer than it did. So for me, plot gets a 50-50. 2 is family friendliness. Inside Out 2 is rated PG, and all the way through, this is definitely a kid-friendly movie. This movie definitely handles some mature topics like changing friendships and who you are as a person changing as well, and the different emotions and things you have to go through and figure out as you're becoming who you're going to be, especially with the topic of anxiety and what that can cause in your brain and who you are. I think the underlying tones of this movie were absolutely fantastic, and that they represented those different emotions and what they can do to you very well in this movie. And they do it in a way that is very understandable and relatable for adults and very appropriate for children. So for me, family friendliness gets a huge thumbs up. 3 is acting and script. All the voice acting in this movie was fantastic. I always love to hear the voice of Phyllis Smith because I recognize her from The Office, and her delivery as sadness is always hilarious. And there are a couple moments with June's squib as nostalgia that made me laugh out loud. Other than that, I didn't feel like there were any standout performances. They just all collectively did a great job. And the script of this movie was good for the most part. I do think this movie would have benefited a lot from including more of what's going on in the parents' minds, because it was definitely a strength of the first film, and it felt like that was missing in this one. Now, there are quite a few clever lines in this movie, but it does feel like the middle of this film is just kind of a mush of really fast-paced dialogue and a little nonsense. There weren't as many zinger one-liners that you could remember, so much so as, oh, that moment was funny because they were all arguing loudly and really fast. I don't really like that in movies. I don't think it benefits it that much, and it kind of made things feel weak in the middle of this film.
Oh, hello. Hello, cutie.
So while that dynamic wasn't my favorite and I think it took away from the film, the voice acting was amazing and the storytelling for the most part was pretty good. So for me, acting and script get a thumbs up. 4 is character development. So there are multiple characters in this movie that get development, and I think that's amazing. Obviously, Riley goes through character development as she's trying to figure out her repressed emotions and these new emotions that are coming in with puberty. Discovering her sense of self and who she wants to be as a person and what her founded beliefs about herself are is a very powerful dynamic in the movie, and it causes character development for her. In addition to that, one of the subtones of this movie are those base emotions going through development themselves as you learn things about the world and about yourself, and that is so conceptually incredible. And I feel like the main emotion that goes through that maturing and development process is joy. She realizes that she can't just fix everything and actually can make things worse without the balance of the other emotions. I really enjoyed this part of the film, so for me, character development gets a thumbs up. 5 is visuals and CGI. The animation in this movie is awesome. Not only was it just as impressive and entertaining and colorful as the first film was, but they added some new mediums of animation that were really enjoyable. I love it when movies have multiple layers of different styles of animation, and so when this movie did that, I was really impressed and entertained. So for me, visuals and CGI get a thumbs up. And 6 is rewatchability. Inside Out 2 clocks in at just over an hour and a half long. And I went into this movie thinking, oh, that must be really short, but it actually ended up feeling quite a bit longer than that. And I feel like the reason why it felt that way is because of that fast-paced dialogue and a little bit of a lull in the middle of the film, like I mentioned. Now, I don't want to come down too hard on this movie because I actually really enjoyed the concept, and by the end of the film, I was like, yeah, that's great, and the subtones of this movie are amazing. But it's definitely not as memorable as the first film was. So while I wasn't entertained for the entire film, I definitely would rewatch this movie. So for me, rewatchability gets a thumbs up. With all these areas considered, I have to give Inside Out 2 a 7.5 out of 10. This movie had a little bit of a pacing issue, and it had some script things in it that I didn't really enjoy just because it was fast-paced and almost nonsensical at times. But the depth of character development in this movie was amazing, the voice acting was spot on, and the understanding that this movie had of emotions and what they turn into and how they can help each other is outstanding. There were definitely a few things that this film could have done to make itself better, but by the end of the film, I just really enjoyed it. So with all that in mind, if you enjoyed the first Inside Out and you're wanting to see it as an adult or even bring your kids, you may want to check out Inside Out 2 in theaters. Thank you so much for watching. If you've seen Inside Out 2, please let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. As always, I appreciate your love and support, and I'll catch you guys and gals in the next one.